On this episode of What the Ship, we look at the top 5 maritime stories as of August 29th, 2025. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. Got 5 stories for you. We're going to pull them all from one source. That's going to be Splash 24/7. Sam Chambers and the crew over there do a great job. Thought I'd take this opportunity to showcase one of the great and premier maritime sites that are out there. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to be alerted about new videos as they come out. This story by Sam Chambers, 30-ton hatch recovered from coal ship explosion in Baltimore. The story recaps what we know. The W Sapphire, 81,000 tons, Greek-owned W Marine, flagged in Liberia, had just cleared the CSX Curtis Bay terminal around 6:30 on August 18th when a blast, and we do mean a blast, ripped through its forward cargo section, sending fireballs and an 80-meter smoke plume into the summer sky, close to where the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge was located. 23 crews and 2 pilots, one of them who would be not flustered at all by this explosion, were safely accounted for with no injuries reported. The Coast Guard confirmed that it had recovered the hatch and fully reopened the Fort McHenry Channel to ship traffic. The Port of Baltimore said sonar sweeps conducted by the Army Corps of Engineers helped locate and clear the obstruction. The ship itself is still located outside the Port of Baltimore. Here is marine traffic. You can see the vessel's AIS shows it in that same anchorage it had been holding in just north of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Ship has been there for quite a while since the explosion. Images show that forward hatch cover is only partially on one side of it. The ship does not appear to be flooding. We don't see the vessel changing its draft at all. Right now, with the Coast Guard conducting the inspection, they're going to have to determine whether or not to bring that ship back into port, offload it, or send it into a repair facility. It can't really sail with only one half of the number 2 hatch cover on board, and then one hatch cover has now been recovered. So there's going to be a lot to be done here before W Sapphire will be cleared to sail. First story takes us out to the Indian Ocean. The Wan Hai 503, this is the ship that had been hit by a fire. The ship has been towed toward the Middle East after 11 weeks adrift without refuge. This is the story by Sam Chambers. The fire-damaged Wan Hai 503 is being towed across the Arabian Sea toward the Middle East after spending nearly 11 weeks stranded without a port of refuge following rejections from both Sri Lanka and India. The 4,333 TEU 20-foot equivalent unit container ship, built back in 2005, caught fire on June 9th off Kerala, southwest India, after an underdeck explosion. 4 of the 22 crew were killed, 6 injured. The ship was en route from Colombo, Sri Lanka, to Naha Sheva in India, was around 50 miles off the Indian coast. Despite salvage teams stabilizing the vessel and cooling the smoldering cargo holds, authorities in India ordered the vessel out of its exclusive economic zone by late June. Sri Lanka subsequently refused permission for the boxship to call. Wan Hai confirmed on August 25th that the Wan Hai 503 is now under tow with its structural integrity, stability, and draft assessed as safe for the voyage. The company said weather routing software has been used to map a course across the Arabian Sea. The final port of refuge has not been disclosed, although Jebel Ali and Khorf Khanan are understood to be under consideration. The ordeal has drawn comparisons with Maersk Frankfurt, which in 2023 was forced to steam across the Arabian Sea. I got to say, this reminds me a lot like Express Pearl. Express Pearl, which had a fire on board, could not find a port of refuge, eventually wound up off the coast of Sri Lanka, caught fire, burned, and then subsequently sunk. This is the problem. Everyone is pawning this ship off, and nobody wants this in their waters for fear of the pollution it brings. All right, let's go to story number 2. Britain, France, and Germany have triggered a 30-day process to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran, a move that threatens to shake up tanker markets. The so-called snapback mechanism would reinstate wide-ranging sanctions suspended under the 2015 nuclear accord, including restrictions on oil exports, financial flows, and maritime trade. Iran crude exports would once again be designated as fully illicit under international law. Insurers, financiers, and port authorities would face renewed pressure to sever ties with Iran-linked tonnage. Western officials said the measure comes in response to Tehran's acceleration of uranium enrichment activities. The European move followed Donald Trump's so-called maximum pressure campaign he has waged against Iran since his return to power in the U.S., with a slew of sanctions aimed at Tehran. I will also add military strikes against Tehran. Now, these are being imposed by countries. These are being reinforced under the provision of the United Nations sanctions that were initially there. Again, these sanctions have the threat to remove Iranian oil from the world market. That would put other oil at a premium. We already have Russian oil under sanctions, Venezuelan oil under sanctions, and now we see potentially Iranian oil going under sanctions. This could cause the energy markets and the tanker market in particularly to spike. This is what we're watching. Story number 3, India charts a $1 trillion maritime investment roadmap. So India has unveiled a $1 trillion investment plan to drive growth across ports. The roundtable, attended by representatives from 28 nations and industry stakeholders, was organized as a lead-up to Indian Maritime Week 2025 in Mumbai on October 27 to 31. My calendar is open for that time period. Union Minister for Ports and Shipping and Waterways, Arbanda Sonowal, said the roadmap targets port and cargo terminal development, multimodal transportation hubs, shipbuilding, ship recycling and repairs, alongside investments in green hydrogen, bunkering, and sustainable shipping. According to Sonowal, quote, India's maritime journey is entering a new chapter. These opportunities open up to $1 trillion in potential with a strong scope for global joint ventures. The discussion also underscores India's push to expand shipbuilding capacity and strengthen port-led development while accelerating digitization in logistics. India has been talking about this for quite a while. They want to see their ports accelerated up, and India sees themselves as the next big contender in the shipbuilding marketplace behind China, Japan, and Korea. Just talked about a $5 billion investment in U.S. shipbuilding by Korea, the first of a $150 billion program. But here's India putting everybody to shame, throwing $1 billion in there to develop their maritime sector. India wants to be a major player when it comes to global shipping. Story number 4 comes from us from Adis Ajin. CMA CGM lines up mega boxship order in China. Granted, CMA CGM is lining up another round of ultra-large container ships as part of its fleet expansion push. Shipbrokers said the Marseille headquartered carrier has signed a letter of intent with Dalian Shipbuilding Industry Company, part of the China State Shipholding Corporation, covering 6 firm plus 4 optional LNG dual-fueled 22,000 TEU vessels. No official pricing has been divulged, but recent orders for similar ships range around $220 million apiece. That could be a $2.1 billion deal. CMA CGM already operates more than 680 ships with around 4 million TEU capacity, which will be boosted by an additional 1.5 million TEU in the coming year. If confirmed, the DCISC deal would mark CMA CGM's third major new building commitment this year. Earlier in 2025, Rudolf Sade ordered a dozen 18,000 TEU LNG dual-fuel carriers from the CSSC Jingnan shipyard for about $2.5 billion, alongside another 12 similar-sized vessels from the Korea's HD Hyundai Heavy Industries for $2.6 billion. The container carriers are drunk with money. They don't know what to do with it, and they're spending it on vessel replacement programs. And these large, ultra-large container vessels are going to be used on that Asia to Europe route, but we're also seeing them being used partially coming to the United States and going to that new Peru facility on the west coast of South America. The problem is overcapacity, and we're going to have a story that talks about that next. Our last story deals with that issue about overbuilding container ships. The Shanghai Container Freight Index blip can't mask deepening container carnage ahead of Q4. Story by Sam Chambers. Red ink is forecast to splatter, I like the use of the word splatter, across the balance sheets of container lines in the final quarter of the year, despite the SCFI snapping its more than 2-month decline. SCFI broke its 11-week-long losing streak today, climbing 30 points to 1445. However, Drewry's rival World Container Index published yesterday was down 6%, down to $2,119 per FEU. Those are 40-foot equivalent units to TEU, with the UK consultant forecasting the index will continue to fall in the coming weeks. The decline in the spot indices have brought rates, particularly on the Trans-Pacific, to near pre-Red Sea crisis levels. According to Peter Sand, the chief analyst over at Zentia, quote, "The last time we saw rates this low prior to the escalation in the Red Sea, carriers were posting big losses. Carriers may still make big bucks in 2025 overall, but this profit will have been made during the volatility early in the year." Goes on to say, while capacity discipline, if any, could provide temporary support for freight rates and even trigger minor recoveries, the persistent demand-supply imbalance will push rates down eventually in the rest of the year. According to analysts over at Linerlytica, they are seeing the chance for a September rate rebound as vanishing quickly. Cargo booking volumes have fallen by between 5 to 20% in the last 2 weeks. I'm going to come back to John McCowan here in a second. With the Trans-Pacific looking the weakest of the main trade lines, carriers are tipped by one leading expert to take action sooner rather than later. Lars Jensen, who heads up container consultancy Vespucci Maritime, said that if the seasonality holds up, the Pacific demand and spot rates are prone to further decline. Sea Intelligence, a Danish liner consultancy, is forecasting supply will grow between 5 and 8% this year and the next 3 years, and there is no indication that global container demand will keep up with this. Sea Intelligence cautioned, quote, "We should expect endemic overcapacity for the coming years, which should lead to spot rates moving to marginal cost levels." All right, I had posted a video not too long ago talking about the record levels coming into U.S. ports. You can see the video up above here and click on it. July was record years. I mean, LA smashed the record. They got the second highest month they ever did. And I had a lot of people come back at me and sit there and say, "Sal, you're weaving a tale. You're telling a tale that's not exactly true." No, I told you the facts. The facts are that July was a record level month. However, at the end of the video, if anybody got to the end of the video, I sat there and said, the second half of the year is going to be much different because what we're going to do is peak early. We're going to get that peak season much earlier than we usually do, not September, October, but probably July or August. And then it's going to begin to fall off. The question is, how much does it fall off? John McCowan, whose company Blue Alpha Capital provides regular container updates, is warning of a dire end to the year on the Trans-Pacific. McCowan describes the National Retail Federation's projection of a 5.6% decrease in total inbound volume for 2025 as a reasonable estimate for U.S. containerized imports. Given that year-to-date volume is up 3.6% through July, this forecast indicates a severe 17.5% decline for the final 5 months of 2025. That means, according to John, this thing is going to fall off a cliff. That's what we can expect. I'm going to link over John's report. He posted over on LinkedIn. This is it. Top 10 U.S. ports, 3.2% container volume increase in July. Deceleration going forward will be eye-popping. I always like to give you both sides of the story. So again, I gave you what the numbers were in July going back, and we showed you all the graphs. Here's John with his prediction. I'm going to read right from John's report. More than ever, it is incumbent on subject matter experts and leaders at organizations impacted by these reckless terrorist initiatives to inoculate the misinformation that has been and continues to be spread. The coming economic difficulties are foretold by history and are completely of our own making. In the decades to come, much thought will be given by historians, and others as to why and how the U.S. went down a path resulting in so much self-inflicted economic harm, while business and political leaders who know better said nothing. I jump to his last paragraph. I think it's useful to think of the initial impacts from the tariffs and the U.S. Trade Representative's ship fee plan on a spectrum involving both commerce and inflation. The more one, the less the other, and vice versa. The more inbound container volumes to the U.S. declines, the more commerce and growth will be impacted, but the less inflation we will get. The less inbound container volume to the U.S. declines, the more inflation we will get, but the less commerce and growth will be impacted. Unfortunately, there is simply no good place to be on that spectrum. All right. I agree with John that we are going to see a drop in the number of containers coming in. I don't know if we see the 17.5% decline he's talking about, because the thing that is different, and I put it in the last video, is we're shifting where we're getting our containers and goods from. It is seeing a spike and rise in cargo coming from other than China right now. India, Indonesia, Cambodia, Thailand, you name it, throughout Southeast Asia, Vietnam, we're getting a lot of cargo from there. The tariffs keep changing. I mean, if there's one consistency about the Trump administration is there's no consistency. And so to sit there and say, we're going to see it drop off a cliff, it could happen. I'm not saying it can't, but I think John is right that everybody needs to be prepared for what happens next because we don't know what's going to happen next. And that is the truth. And what I try to do is sit there and say, listen, anybody's predicting the future with this administration and with this track record we have with shipping, because let's be clear, it doesn't have to be the tariffs that cause the next big problem. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 friggin' years now, and it's Ever Given, it's Dolly, it's the Houthi, it's the supply chain crisis. There are a lot of things outside of everyone's control that impact shipping, and we don't know what the next thing is going to be. Will it be self-inflicted? Could be. Is it going to be inflicted by somebody else? Maybe. The idea that we can predict all this stuff is you have to do the best to insulate yourself. And I agree with John on that. You've got to be prepared. So what are we seeing happening? Hey, we're going to try to get as much cargo into the United States before the tariffs go up. But that comes with costs because then you have to warehouse it. You have to ship it in early. You have a lot of other money that goes into that. Some goods cannot be shipped early into the United States. It could be perishable. It could be time constrained. It may not be built yet. Or I may be a small business and can't afford to warehouse it. I got to wait and ship it in when I can receive it, not later. And this can cause congestion in the ports as cargo piles up in the ports, cause congestion in the warehouses. All of this means is that we're in for a very varied second half of the year. If Iranian oil gets embargoed or sanctioned by European nations, that is going to be a big problem because now you have Russian oil, now you throw Iranian oil in there. That's going to cause energy to spike. It's going to mean longer routes for tankers. There are fewer tankers out there. Houthi are on the rise. We saw those 2 very, very visible attacks on ships. That means tankers may have to go longer routes. We don't have enough tankers to do that. That means ton miles increases. All of this is bad for the consumer because all of this means when we have volatility in the shipping market, that means higher prices for everyone. It is not good. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hope you enjoyed our showcasing Splash 24/7. It just happened to hit. They had 5 great stories. Thought I'd do it there along with that update. Worked out perfectly. My hat's off to everybody over there at Splash 24/7. But there's plenty of other news sites out there that we use. But the best news site you can come to is this channel right here. What's going on with shipping? So if you happen to, hey, remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do it? Well, you can hit that little super thanks button down below. You can contribute right to the page and give it a big thumbs up, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly, yearly subscriber. Until our next episode, this is Sal, signing off.